Alright guys, long time no talk. Excuse the no shirt, no messed up hair. It's 106 degrees today in Arizona. We have a fork seal job today on the beautiful 1098. Been leaking fork oil for a while, so it's time to replace the seals. The Showa forks, pretty straightforward. You got to strip down a lot of the fairings just to get to your fasteners to remove the forks, and then you got to hoist your bike up a certain way. They make a pit bull stand that goes right under there so you can get the front up without having any bracket support on the forks. This is just so. Anyways, I went cheap this time using some Maxima fork oil. They asked for some Shell fork oil, which is really hard to find. The fork seal kit that Ducati sells is $80 or $95 each side. You're looking at a $200 job. All Balls Performance or All Balls Racings sells both seals for $30. So hopefully they last long. I've put aftermarket seals on my other bikes and they've been pretty good. So we'll see how it is on this bike. The first thing we got to do is we got to get to the forks, so that requires us to remove the fairings. So with the side fairings removed, you have easy access to these bolts, and all you need is a little extension, and you should have no problem removing these and putting a torque wrench in there. What's up, dogs? What's up, little babies? If you have those expensive pit bull stands, you can ignore this step. Removing these side panels and lifting up your ignition cover. You can put straps inside of here. You can see this is the thicker tubing of your frame. And I'm going to use these straps here to hoist it, the front end up. Seems sketchy because it is. Big load bearing header up there. You have a little straps attached to the large part of the frame, and then I can still do this, which is what you're going to need to do because your fasteners are right there. You're going to have to turn your handlebars to get to those fasteners. And we have liftoff. Seems sketchy? Because it is. Alright, once we have liftoff, we're going to remove the front fender, caliper, and your front wheel. So getting the front caliper is pretty difficult to do. What you have to do is kind of twist the caliper so that the pads spread apart, and then you should be able to wiggle this out of here. Once you get to this point here, we will go ahead and break loose this bolt, or this cap for the forks is a 32mm socket. Harbor Freight's your best friend. You're going to break this loose as soon as you loosen up your handlebar clamps, and then we'll remove the fork. Okay, now we're at the step of disassembling the fork. First thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen up the preload adjuster, and then we can loosen up the top cap. Now we're going to use our handy dandy spring compressor tool. We're going to slide it on our fork and compress it, and then use our shim to access our nut. And just like that. Now we're going to unscrew our top cap. So the goal is to hold the dark nut with a wrench and then spin the red top cap off. But you need a really narrow 14mm wrench to get in there, or someone's help. Okay, come on. Okay. Just like that. This is your top cap. And so now we're going to remove our tools here. We're going to lift up the damper rod. Do you need to compress your spring first? You got a washer that goes in. And then you got your spacer, little plastic spacer. We remove our really cool tool. And then your sleeve comes out just like that, nice and oily. And then this is your damper rod. You want to drain your oil out completely by moving this up and down while you're draining it. Remember which way your spring goes in, which way it points to the top, because it will matter. Now we're going to remove our seals. We're going to take off our dust seal first, which is this guy. He's flathead, very gentle. Once it comes off, you can use your fingers. This is your dust seal. And then inside you'll find a clip. You'll also unclip. There it is right here. Try not to scratch your forks. And then with a hammer motion, you can lift up and remove your fork. Slide it upwards several times to dislodge the oil seal from the bushing and the fork. Remember, your circlip and your dust seal are off. And bada bing, bada boom, you got your oil seal that failed, your washer, your bushing, your other bushing. Make sure none of the coating has worn off. Looks pretty good. Now we will go ahead and remove our bushing and all our other assortments and replace our seals and reverse the process. This bushing just gets removed. You just pry it and then you can slip it over. Bushing. Now we have all our components removed. We have our bushing, we have our spacer, we have our washer, we have our oil seal. The numbers always face down. Our circlip and our dust seal. Go ahead and clean off your fork. Make sure you clean off the inside. And once it's all clean, you're going to put some new oil to lube, and then we put our new seals on. Okay, once you have everything cleaned, we're going to go ahead and re-lube it with oil and then install our seals. And you're going to use a plastic bag as your interface in between your fork and your seal. So go ahead and put a plastic bag like this, and we'll just cut it to shape. We'll get it our new seal. We'll also put some oil on that. Then we'll go and slide your dust seal first. Just like that. Then your circlip. And then your oil seal. Get this one nice and lubed up. This is an all balls oil seal. There's small numbers on one side. That number faces down. This visible spring always faces upwards. And that's all we need the bag for. Next thing is our washer, our bushing, and then our other bushing. Go ahead and put some new oil on this. You just spread it apart and hopefully it slides right in. Just like that. Alright, once we have all our components on, we're going to go ahead and slide our fork. And the best way to do it is like this. Make sure everything is nice and lubed up. And at this point I like to flip it and everything kind of falls into place. Slide our oil seal down. This is where you need to use your seal driver. We'll go ahead and drive our seal in. You know you're all the way down when you can see the grooves for your circlip. Once you drive your seals in, go ahead and install your circlip. You can start it by hand and then very easily push it down. Listen for that click. Push it on all tabs that you see sticking out from the inside. And make sure your circlip is fully seated. What I like to do, I like to push in it and make sure I'm able to spin it. If I'm able to spin the circlip, I know it's seated properly. And then your final step is to drop your dust seal. And this, you usually don't need a seal driver. You just use your fingers. A lot of people say don't let your seals touch this part of the fork because it usually has debris. You can wrap a bandana or a towel here to prevent your seals from going all the way there, because it could damage your seal. I haven't found that being an issue yet, but you do want to avoid this smashing that. So now we have our new seals in. We can now fill it up with oil and then reassemble. We go ahead and pour the new oil. I'm using Maximo fork oil. It calls for the Shell 7.5 oil, but I can never find it. So I'm using 5 weight, which is a little bit lighter. Luckily these forks are fully adjustable. So it requires 439 cc of whatever fork oil you want to use. We will go ahead and pour it in now. And forceps to pull up my damping rod. You want to do 20 full strokes up and down, and this will fill up your damper with the new fluid. So you can either pump it now or pump it when you have the other components on. I like to do it now so I can do complete strokes. This is kind of what it looks like when it feels continuous. There's no change in damping throughout the whole stroke. That's how you know you eliminated a lot of the air bubbles. So next we're going to install our spring. Usually your spring is going to be tapered. The tapered side is going to face down. My spring is not tapered, so I'm just going to put it the way it went in. Then you're going to put your spacer in. And this is where we're going to use a special hose. So this is like a 1/2 inch hose I got from AutoZone. Clean it off. We're going to use this to prevent the damping rod from getting lost when we put our spacer on. So we got spacer. You got to be kind of fast about it. Grab your rod, and then you're going to have to put on your special tool. Compress the spring. We'll go ahead and put our spacer, plastic spacer, and our washer. These go on top. And then we're going to compress our spring down with our cool little tool and use our spacer to keep everything compressed down. There we go. That's kind of where we want to be at. Go ahead and take off our handy dandy hose. The next thing we put on is our top cap, and this just slides right in. Make sure your nut is screwed onto the damping rod by finger tight. Top cap goes on. You screw that all the way down. This one does have a torque spec. Okay, once you get your 14mm wrench on your damper rod, the top cap gets torqued to the damper rod at 30 to 40 Newton meters. I'm going to do 30 Newton meters.